Elvis was not a well man, and I'm staggered at the number of possible causes of death.
For decades, Elvis Presley's case file remained locked away, hidden from public view despite endless speculation surrounding his death. Now, a retired Memphis detective claims to finally reveal why the file was kept secret for a long time. So, what was inside that authorities didn't want the world to see? Join us as we investigate the truth. The locked file. There's a long-running claim circulating online that a retired Memphis detective finally revealed why Elvis Presley's case file about his death was locked away, implying some official cover-up. But here's where the facts begin and speculation ends. Elvis Aaron Presley, the American music icon, passed away on August 16, 1977. His body was found unresponsive in the bathroom of his Graceland mansion in Memphis, Tennessee. The discovery was made by his girlfriend, Ginger Alden. The official death investigation was handled by local medical authorities and law enforcement at the time, just like in any other unexpected death. And there was no criminal case file alleging foul play opened by the Memphis Police Department or the medical examiner. What was unusual, and what people often misunderstand, is this. Elvis's autopsy and toxicology reports were sealed from the public for decades. His father, Vernon Presley, requested that the full details remain private, and that request was granted. That left just the basic official cause of death publicly released as a fatal heart-related event connected to his declining health and extensive prescription use. Because the full autopsy documents were unavailable, conspiracy theories sprang up almost immediately, including claims that there was some secret file hidden from the world. But the sealed autopsy isn't evidence of a cover-up. It's legally sanctioned privacy, which families can request. In fact, that sealed documentation is scheduled to be released around the 50-year anniversary of his death, which is in 2027. There are no official records that a case file on Elvis was locked away by police in the sense of a criminal investigation, because no homicide investigation was ever launched. What's being sealed is something else. Let's explain further. A legend that never gets old. Growing up in the small town of Tupelo, Mississippi, Elvis Aaron Presley was born on January 8, 1935, to a working-class family who struggled to make ends meet. As a boy, Elvis sang in church and listened to the blues and gospel music that filled the streets of his hometown, and later, the radio waves of Memphis, Tennessee, where his family moved when he was 13. In 1954, when Elvis was 19, he walked into Sun's studio in Memphis, hoping simply to record a personal demo. What happened in that small recording room changed music forever. Producer Sam Phillips heard something in his voice that was raw, electric, and unlike anything on the radio at the time. That voice could carry country music's twang, rhythm, and blues grit, and something new entirely. With guitarist Scotty Moore and bassist Bill Black backing him, Elvis cut his first tracks for Sun, blending traditions and birthing what would become known as rock and roll. Elvis's first national rise came after those early Sun recordings. His music was energetic and unrestrained, and his stage presence was magnetic. He moved with an intensity that shocked some, but enthralled many, especially young fans. His hip movements and wide, emotional voice made him a sensation among teenagers who had never seen anything like him. That raw appeal helped him stand out on the crowded airwaves and sign with RCA Records in 1955. After a young manager named Colonel Tom Parker negotiated the deal that would send Elvis's music into homes across America. With RCA behind him, Elvis exploded onto the national stage. In 1956, he released the song Heartbreak Hotel, which became his first #1 hit and introduced him to millions of listeners. That same year, he dominated the charts with hits like Don't Be Cruel and Hound Dog. He also appeared on national television, including a performance on a hugely popular variety show that drew massive audiences and cemented his status as a national star. Nearly every household had heard of him by the end of that year. The impact was immediate and cultural. Elvis was not just another singer, he became a symbol of a generational shift. Rock and roll wasn't merely music anymore. It was a voice for young people who wanted something new, expressive, and bold. His records sold in the millions, and his live appearances were packed with fans who screamed at the sight of him. Everywhere Elvis went, he left a trail of excitement and controversy. Some adults worried about his provocative movements and questioning lyrics. But for teenagers, he represented freedom, rebellion, and energy. Part of what made Elvis's rise so dramatic was how quickly it happened. Less than 2 years after leaving Soon's studio, he was a household name. He had hit records, sold out crowds, and movie contracts that brought his music to an even wider audience. But his journey wasn't without bumps. Early in his career, he had a performance on a famous country television program that didn't go well, and some critics dismissed him early on. Even so, Elvis kept performing and improving, and those early setbacks didn't stop him from becoming one of the most famous performers in American history. This is the legacy of the king of rock and roll, the man who broke hearts and won cheers. This is the star, Elvis Presley, and like all stars, he had his rough moments too. Keep watching if you want to find out more. Elvis's comeback special. Elvis Presley's career was a wild ride, from the lightning-fast rise in the 1950s to a spell in Hollywood that kept him busy but creatively stalled. By the mid-1960s, the singer who once set the world on fire with his voice and stage presence had spent much of his energy making movie musicals. These films earned money but did not challenge him as an artist. They were often formulaic, and many of his performances were restricted to simple, predictable roles. This routine left him restless and unsure of his future as a performer. Then, in 1968, Elvis made one of the most remarkable comebacks in entertainment history. That year, television was the stage for a transformation. NBC offered Elvis a special, originally intended to be a conventional holiday broadcast, with him singing mellow Christmas songs. His longtime manager, Colonel Tom Parker, saw it as safe and predictable. But Elvis himself wanted something different. He wanted his music and his energy back. Working with a producer named Steve Binder, he reimagined the project. They turned it into a showcase of raw performance, mixing intimate live moments with dynamic studio segments. What emerged was the now famous 1968 comeback special. When the special aired on December 3rd, it was a cultural event. In its opening minutes, Elvis walked on stage dressed in a tight black leather outfit, the kind of bold look that recalled both his rebellious early days and something almost timeless. The moment felt electric. Elvis sang with intensity, moving between his old hits and songs that showed a deeper, more seasoned performer. In several segments, he sat close to a small, live audience with just his old band behind him. These sit-down moments reminded everyone why he had become a legend in the first place. For years, Elvis had been out of the public eye as a live singer. His last major live performance had been before he entered the Army in the late 1950s. Since then, he had focused on movies and studio recordings. And though he still had fans, many wondered if his best years were behind him. The 1968 special showed that they were not. On screen, he appeared confident and eager. He moved with a kind of joy that suggested he had rediscovered his purpose as a live performer. The show drew huge television ratings and was one of the most watched broadcasts of the season. It was not just the music that made the special memorable. It was the feeling that Elvis had returned to himself. The show featured new arrangements of classics like Heartbreak Hotel and Jailhouse Rock, and audience reactions proved that the singer still had unquestionable star power. One particularly powerful moment came at the end of the broadcast when he sang the song If I Can Dream, a passionate, hopeful number that was inspired by the turbulent times in America, including the recent deaths of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy. This song, sung with feeling and presence, became one of the defining performances of his later career. After the success of the comeback special, Elvis did not return to movies full-time. Instead, he began recording serious music again and prepared for a life on the road. In 1969, he started performing live shows in Las Vegas and across the United States. The comeback was real, and for a time, it gave his career a second wind, just as a new generation of fans discovered his music. This period was sometimes called his Elvis-essence. It reminded the world that Elvis was more than a star in films or a chart-topping artist. He was, at his core, a live performer with an extraordinary voice and an ability to connect with audiences in ways few entertainers ever could. The 1968 comeback did more than revive his career. It reintroduced Elvis Presley to the world as the king of rock and roll. It was an enlivening sensation, but it didn't last. Here's what happened next. When health gets in the way, Elvis Presley was one of the most famous entertainers in the world. He was also a man whose health was quietly deteriorating under pressures most of his fans never saw. On stage, he could still electrify audiences. Off stage, his body was struggling. What many people remember as the triumphant final years of a beloved performer were, in truth, also years marked by serious physical decline, chronic illness, and the increasing reliance on prescription medication. By the early 1970s, Elvis's health was no longer what it once was. What may have started as ordinary fatigue from years of performing grew into something far more serious. Those closest to him began to notice troubling signs. His weight fluctuated widely. One week, he appeared heavier and puffy. The next, he looked gaunt. His face sometimes appeared swollen, and observers noticed a softness in his movements that had not been there in earlier performances. These were visible signs of deeper struggles that were happening inside his body. Doctors later found that he suffered from a condition called megacolon, in which the large intestine becomes so enlarged that it can no longer function normally. This condition caused severe constipation, bloating, and abdominal pain. These are symptoms that can be long-term and extremely uncomfortable. Medical reports indicated that Presley had been dealing with this issue for years, and it progressively worsened. The pain and distress associated with megacolon can be debilitating and was a growing burden on his daily life. If only that was all. Doctors also observed that he showed signs of high blood pressure, liver strain, and possible pre-diabetic symptoms. These were all conditions that can wear the body over time. The stress of constant performing took a bitter toll. In the year before his death, Elvis performed more than 60 live shows, often with very little rest between them. These were full-scale productions demanding high energy, precise timing, and emotional commitment, things Elvis was not fit to give. Secretly, his body was tired and in pain, struggling to keep up with the demands placed on it. Some nights he left the stage feeling victorious, and other nights he left exhausted and drained. To manage pain, insomnia, and the pressures of touring, doctors prescribed medications intended to help him cope. Over time, the number of prescriptions grew. Records and medical evaluations conducted after his death showed that Elvis had been taking a wide variety of prescriptions, including stimulants to help him stay awake for performances. There were sedatives to help him sleep afterward, painkillers for ailments that ranged from muscle strain to chronic discomfort, and tranquilizers to calm anxiety. Each medication, prescribed with the intention to ease suffering, brought its own risks, especially when taken in combination with others. What's worse, at the time, the long-term effects of such combinations were not as well understood as they are today. This growing reliance on medication masked symptoms, while also placing additional strain on the organs responsible for processing prescriptions, including the liver and kidneys. In a cycle that may have seemed helpful in the short term, medication helped him perform or sleep, but it also introduced new stresses to his body. This created a situation in which Elvis sometimes felt he needed the very substances that were making it harder for his body to heal or rest naturally. Hospital visits in his final years were an indication that his health troubles were no longer manageable on their own. These stays were not casual. Doctors treated him for recurring symptoms related to heart strain, digestive obstruction, and severe discomfort. Each hospital visit revealed how multiple health systems in his body were struggling. These were not just isolated ailments, but a constellation of issues all demanding medical attention. Yet, even with this attention, the relentless pace of his schedule and the complexity of his medical treatments made full recovery unlikely. Elvis's final performances were marked by this duality. He could still deliver powerful shows that left audiences cheering, but behind the curtain, his body fought battles the public could not see. One night, he would stand on stage commanding a crowd of thousands, and the next morning, he would be fighting pain and exhaustion alone in his hotel room or the back of a tour bus. On August 16, 1977, that struggle came to an end when his housekeeper found him unresponsive in the bathroom at Graceland. Emergency responders were called, and he was rushed to the hospital, but doctors could not revive him. The official cause of death was ruled a cardiac arrhythmia, meaning an irregular heartbeat that stopped the heart. Later medical commentary connected this directly to the ongoing stress his body endured from chronic conditions, years of extensive prescription use, and the cumulative toll of a demanding lifestyle. In his final years, Elvis Presley was still performing and still adored by millions. Yet beneath the roar of applause was a man facing complex health challenges that few outside his inner circle fully understood. What the world remembers as moments of triumph were also quietly moments of struggle. They were the last act of a life lived intensely and a body pushed beyond its limits. This is where the secret autopsy comes in. Stay tuned. A secret autopsy. The day Elvis Presley passed away was one of the most shocking moments in modern music history. Elvis was just 42 years old. In the years leading up to that afternoon, he had been battling serious health issues, many of which had grown more visible in the final decade of his life. By the 1970s, friends, colleagues, and fans noticed that he wasn't the lean, athletic performer of his youth. His weight fluctuated, he struggled with chronic physical ailments, and he relied increasingly on prescription medication. These factors set the stage for a tragic end that would leave many questions unanswered for decades. The first official announcement from the medical examiner's spokesperson was that Elvis had passed away of cardiac arrest, meaning that his heart had stopped. The examiner, Dr. Jerry Francisco, claimed early tests showed heart failure and said that prescriptions played no role in causing it. This statement surprised many, given the mounting evidence of his poor health, weight gain, and heavy use of prescription medicines in the years before his death. An autopsy was conducted on the same day he passed away. A team of pathologists led by the chief of pathology at the hospital performed the examination to determine the deeper medical causes of his passing. According to contemporary reporting, they found that Elvis was suffering from several chronic conditions, including signs of cardiovascular disease and evidence linked to long-term health struggles that had dogged him for years. These included severe constipation, possible diabetes, and physical evidence of organ stress from years of medication use. Toxicology tests were also done, and those tests detected multiple prescription medications in his body at the time of death. However, because the full records were controlled by the family, the toxicology results were never fully disclosed to the public. What made Elvis's post-death investigation unusual was because his family requested that the full autopsy report and toxicology results be kept private. Because the autopsy was conducted as part of a medical procedure for the family rather than a formal criminal investigation, the document became external to public record law and could be treated as a private medical record. At the request of Elvis's father, Vernon Presley, the detailed autopsy materials were sealed and remained inaccessible to journalists, historians, and the general public for decades. Most sources report that these files are expected to be available, or at least not legally restricted, around the 50th anniversary of his death in 2027. The fact that Elvis's autopsy was sealed so quickly and thoroughly fueled speculation from the earliest days after his death. People wondered why such secrecy was necessary if the cause of death was simple heart failure. Was there more in those autopsy pages that someone did not want the world to see? Commentators and fans offered differing viewpoints. Some suggested the secrecy was just the family's wish to protect Elvis's dignity, while others argued that the results might reveal deeper truths about his health, prescription use, or even medical missteps. But until the complete documents are available, there is no officially verified record of what the sealed pages contain. What is known comes from secondhand accounts, expert commentary, and court records explaining why the documents were kept private. In the years after Elvis's death, journalists, authors, and television shows repeatedly tried to gain access to the sealed files. One notable attempt occurred in 1982, when a major news program sought legal permission to release the autopsy, but the request was denied by the Tennessee Supreme Court, which upheld the privacy arrangement. This decision reinforced the idea that the documents were not public records and that the family's right to privacy took precedence over public curiosity. Elvis Presley's death, the autopsy that followed, and the decision to seal the detailed medical report became part of his enduring mystique. These events left fans grappling with unanswered questions and helped fuel decades of speculation about what really happened that summer afternoon at Graceland. Now, let's unlock the file and get to the bottom of the case in the next section. The locked file conspiracy. For decades after Elvis Presley's death, one of the most persistent stories circulating among fans, tabloid writers, and rumor hunters was the idea that something about his death had been hidden. People believed that official documents were locked away, and that this secrecy proved there was a cover-up. In truth, the roots of this conspiracy narrative were less about secret police files and more about the sealed autopsy report and the public's refusal to accept the end of an era. What began as simple curiosity grew into a full-blown set of theories that would capture the imagination of some parts of pop culture for decades. The first seed of the conspiracy comes from a very real and verifiable fact. Elvis's autopsy and detailed medical records were sealed at the request of his family, specifically his father, Vernon Presley. Vernon chose to keep the full medical findings away from the public eye, and for a long time, media outlets respected that legal privacy. Because of that, the general public only had fragmentary information about what doctors found after Elvis passed away on August 16, 1977. That vacuum, where curiosity existed but detailed facts were unavailable, became fertile ground for speculation and imaginative storytelling. What truly ignited conspiracy culture around Elvis was not an official statement, but a lack of detailed public information. People saw the absence of data as evidence that something was being hidden from them. The notion that a famous star's autopsy could be sealed for decades seemed unusual, and conspiracy thinkers leapt on that as proof of some deeper secret. Over time, this simple uncertainty was expanded into larger theories about hidden motives, secret identities, and even claims that Elvis had not passed away at all. In the late 1970s and 80s, as Elvis's death continued to drive intense emotional reactions among fans, some authors and media producers began to take the idea of a hidden truth further. One of the earliest and most influential figures in this was Gail Brewer Giorgio, an American author who wrote a novel in 1978 based loosely on Elvis's life, but ending with a character who fakes his death and starts a new life. The book, titled Orion, was fiction. However, many readers interpreted it as a clue or coded message about Presley himself. Brewer Giorgio later claimed she had seen thousands of classified documents suggesting that Elvis might have gone undercover or faked his death with government help. However, there is no verified public evidence that such documents ever existed, or that the FBI ever investigated Presley in that way. The idea caught on with a subculture of fans who came to be known informally as Elvis Lives believers. They pointed to supposed clues such as his middle name spelling on his tombstone, alleged sightings of Elvis in various places around the world, and stories of a man buying a ticket under the name John Burroughs, which Elvis once used as an alias, as evidence that he was still alive somewhere. None of these claims have been substantiated, and in several cases they have been thoroughly debunked by researchers and historians. But by the late 80s, conspiracy television specials and tabloid articles had spread these ideas to wider audiences who were willing to entertain them as fun what-ifs. Another key moment in keeping the theory alive happened in 1991 and 1992, when television documentaries and specials focused on Elvis mysteries and sightings. These programs presented a mix of genuine historical context and sensationalized speculation. They interviewed people who claimed to have seen Elvis after 1977, showcased supposed photographic evidence, and treated the idea of his survival as something thrilling and unresolved. Major media events like this served to legitimize the conversation in the eyes of some viewers, not as a serious historical claim, but as a compelling story that would keep drawing attention. Over time, these narratives grew bolder, incorporating other elements entirely unconnected to the original sealed documents. Some theories suggested mafia involvement, government manipulation, or hidden intelligence roles, none of which have any credible foundation. Others pointed to tiny details like differences in Elvis's supposed post-death appearance, alleged inconsistencies in official documents, or anomalies in photographs. These served as secret clues. Each of these claims proliferated through tabloids, fan forums, and later the internet, creating an ecosystem of speculation that was far more elaborate than the original facts. Perhaps the most important fact to understand is this: the conspiracy did not begin with a verified hidden file. It began with a genuine gap in public information, which was then filled by people eager not to accept a beloved cultural icon's death as final. The sealed autopsy gave room for stories to develop, and creative imaginings took root where hard facts were unavailable. Over time, the Elvis conspiracy genre became iconic in its own right, not because it proved Elvis was alive, but because it illustrates how uncertainty and emotion can fuel myths that outlive the reality they are based on. Keep watching for more on this fascinating story. King of Rock, Roll and Mystery. Even after decades, Elvis Presley remains one of the most famous and scrutinized figures in music history, and with fame came speculation. Beyond the locked file theory, fans and writers have imagined countless other conspiracies surrounding him. Some of the smallest involved supposed sightings in restaurants, airports, and hotels, where people claimed to recognize Elvis decades after his death. These sightings often lacked verifiable proof and were typically anecdotal, but they captured the imagination of fans who wanted to believe that their hero had somehow survived. Newsweek.com. Other theories grew larger, such as claims that Elvis faked his death entirely to escape the pressures of fame. These ideas were fueled by his deep desire for privacy in the later years, his close relationship with family members who valued discretion, and his increasingly erratic health. Books, television specials, and tabloid articles in the 1980s and 90s promoted the notion that Elvis might have started a new life under an alias. Authors like Gail Brewer Giorgio popularized these theories in both fictional and non-fictional formats, mixing real events with imaginative storytelling to keep readers questioning the truth. Other conspiracies suggested that criminal organizations or government agencies were involved in some form of cover-up. Some theorists claimed that Elvis had connections with organized crime figures, and therefore his death was staged or concealed to protect certain interests. Others imagined secret collaborations with government intelligence, suggesting he had faked his death to work undercover. There is no verified evidence supporting any of these claims, and they are generally considered modern myths. Yet these theories persisted because they were sensational, and they played into the human desire to believe in hidden truths behind famous figures. Some of the more imaginative claims involved forensic misunderstandings. Observers noted that photographs of Elvis's grave at Graceland sometimes appeared to show inconsistencies in his tombstone inscriptions or the condition of the site. Others questioned differences in his appearance in post-mortem photographs versus earlier pictures. Experts dismissed these as minor anomalies caused by normal changes over time, photo angles, or photographic artifacts. Yet, conspiracy theorists treated them as clues that the king of rock and roll had returned in secret. Even in the internet age, when information is more accessible than ever, Elvis conspiracies continue to circulate. Social media accounts, fan websites, and video channels regularly share supposed sightings, alternative explanations for his death, and analysis of his later appearances. While none of these claims are backed by verifiable evidence, they persist because they tap into the enduring fascination with Elvis's life and the sadness of losing such a cultural icon too soon. The enduring appeal of these stories highlights a simple human truth. When someone becomes larger than life, it can be difficult for fans to accept that they are gone. Elvis's impact was so immense that even small anomalies or unanswered questions were enough to inspire creative speculation. In many ways, the conspiracies surrounding him, from minor sighting claims to elaborate faked death stories, reflect both the extraordinary fame he achieved and the collective desire to see him continue living in some form. Even the smallest conspiracies, such as stories of him living quietly under a different name, and the largest, like claims of government or criminal intervention, share a common thread. They all stem from the combination of secrecy, iconic status, and the public's yearning to believe that Elvis was more than just a man who lived and passed away. Over time, these myths became cultural artifacts themselves, illustrating how legends can evolve long after the actual person has passed away. They are a testament to how deeply Elvis Presley has been woven into the imagination of his fans around the world. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.